A central purpose of the war on drugs was to safeguard all of us from the growing violence of street crime. Yet since 1985, drug-related murder and violence have trended steadily upward. Every year since 1986, more than 20,000 Americans have been murdered. Enforcement, aimed overwhelmingly at reducing the supply of drugs, is not protecting us. Well, what about this? Can we perhaps separate the violent professional drug sellers from the usually non-violent mass of drug users? Then, instead of imprisoning enormous numbers of users, can we treat them, get them off drugs, and so decrease America's demand for illegal narcotics? We found one answer in Brooklyn. Every morning at the Brooklyn Criminal Court, this is the scene. An endless line shuffling toward the security gates. They've come to see friends and loved ones tried, usually convicted, often sent to prison for long years, most of them on charges involving drugs. But every now and then, upstairs in Judge Rose McBrien's court, someone gets a second chance.
We're very proud that we have been able to point one person in the right direction.
2 years ago, Eladio Freitas was caught selling drugs, but because he had no history of violence, the Brooklyn DA offered him a remarkable choice. He could take his chances with a jury, or he could go into a tough 2-year-long drug treatment program. If Eladio stayed the course, he'd come out drug-free, with a job, a new place to live, and all charges dropped. If he didn't complete the program, he'd go to prison under a long, mandatory sentence. The choice is called DTAP, the Drug Treatment Alternative to Prison.
This is not a slap on the wrist program. This is a tough program. These people go in there for 2 years. These people are made to face their peers. These people are made to face themselves. This is not easy. Some people realize that they would prefer to sit in jail and stare at a wall rather than look at themselves inwardly. This is tough to do.
Well, I was homeless. Every day I had to hustle up money to get drugs, crack.
Dino Offer is one of DTAP's first graduates. When police busted him in 1990, he was a homeless junkie. Today, 3 years out of DTAP, he works 2 jobs, pays taxes, is reconciled with his family.
There's no rehabilitation in jail. You know, the drug treatment alternative to jail is the only program that offers rehabilitation in the whole criminal justice system.
To slap people in jail whose only crime is their sickness, is their addiction, makes no sense whatsoever.
DA Charles Hines and his deputy, Susan Powers, created DTAP. They cite 2 dramatic sets of figures to prove its success. First, the price tag.
If you want to round it off, it's $44,000 to put someone in state prison for the first year, as opposed to $18,000 for DTAP.
Statewide, 40% of New York drug criminals released from prison are rearrested within 2 years. For DTAP graduates, the comparable rearrest rate is just 16%.
The reason this country has not expanded drug treatment alternatives as fast as I'd like to see it done is because of the concern of political leadership, that the public would much rather hear a jail-only solution. And they're right, but they're giving them the wrong message. And what I'm suggesting is when I give the message, as clearly as I try to do, that you've had your pockets picked for all these years, and safety is something that continues to diminish, then you've got to look for an alternative, and we have the alternative, and it works.
You are about to commence the rest of your life, and it's going to be a good life, because you've learned about yourself, and you're going to help others, and you're going to have a wonderful life. Congratulations, and good luck.
And that brings us to the next question. Does drug treatment work? Is it worth what it costs? Or is it, as many Americans believe, pretty much of a boondoggle? For the answer, we went to one of the nation's most successful treatment programs. It's called Amity.
You've got to let your feelings go. Let your feelings go. Back, let go.
I never felt my life go down like I did when I started using heroin. And my kids, I basically let them, I gave them away.
Society views me as one of those people who there's no hope for and no help for. I think that they view me as the human waste.
This is Amity, a therapeutic community nestled in the mountains of Arizona. It's the same kind of treatment facility DTAP uses, but Amity is unique. Amity is one of the few drug treatment centers in America that takes mothers and their children.
A woman who wanted to come into Amity with her child was unable to do so because of liability issues, and at that time we weren't set up for that. And she shot herself.
In their months or years at therapeutic communities, former addicts work, earn diplomas, learn trades. But the core of every such community is this, the group, where you must finally face out loud and in detail the person you were on drugs. This is what Judge McBrien back in Brooklyn calls harder than prison.
You know, I felt inferior to most women because a lot of the women that you know, like in my family and stuff, none of them have been dope fiends, you know, and stuff, and they don't know what it's like to, you know, be thrown in a room and like gang raped and abused and beaten up and just thrown out, you know, like in the garbage, just about, you know, basically. And I felt I wasn't worthy. I felt like I was, you know, only a piece of meat, something to use and get rid of. You know?
It costs about $17,000 a year to treat an addict at Amity. Deputy Director Nadia Arbiter, herself once an addict and drug smuggler, says it's money well spent.
You have to look at the costs of welfare and food stamps and child protective service workers and probation officers and parole officers and times in jail and booking costs and health care costs and on and on and on and on. And one woman can end up in her career of addiction costing actual tax-paying dollars, maybe $1 million. For that $1 million, you could clean up 50 to 60 women and their children.
I mean, there'd be days where I think I'm just failing, and there'd be days where I think, all right, things are working out.
Treatment doesn't always work, and it certainly doesn't always work the first time. Addiction, as any smoker knows, is powerful. Drug experts say treatment works only for people who want to change their lives. Which brings us to this remarkable family we met at Amity, 3 generations of Madueños. There's Mary Helen, who gave away her children to pursue a career as an addict. There's Georgette, Mary Helen's 6-year-old daughter, and Matthew, her son, he's 7, just getting acquainted with the stranger who is their mother. And there's George, Mary Helen's father, himself a long-term heroin addict undergoing treatment here. He rescued her from a crack house and brought her to Amity.
And when I see my daughter, it just makes me so happy that she finally has her kids and she's trying to be a mother, man, you know.
He genuinely loves his children, and that was the door into George. I think George cared more about the lives of his children than he did about his own life. And that ultimately was the door that opened in terms of his own sobriety.
That we learn to live in this world in peace.
A study by the RAND Corporation last year found that just $1 invested in treatment can reduce drug use as much as with $7 invested in enforcement and punishment. Nevertheless, America's drug policy remains overwhelmingly punishment-oriented.